Hello, this is Terry. Welcome to Snowdrops Sunsets. I'm doing an ad hoc video, although I have prepared stuff in the past, so if I look away, that's what I'm doing. I'm not 100% sure what the video is going to be called yet, but it's going to be around the topics of mental health, natural healing, trauma, and how you can naturally heal from trauma that causes mental health issues. Or at least some sharing of my own experiences going through or working through mental health issues that I've had in the past. It's a bit of a funny video for me. It's definitely right on the edge of my comfort zone. It's not something I would necessarily plan on talking about, but it kind of keeps coming in my experience, so I really feel inspired to do the video, but it's like right on the edge for me. So just like to be clear, I'm not a doctor. I've had no training in any sort of medical practice, any sort of psychiatry, anything at all. No training, no formal training at all. If you want a formally trained person to listen to, please go elsewhere. And also, I'm just talking, just giving an opinion, just giving, sometimes it might sound like advice, but you know what? You're a grown adult. Hopefully you're a grown adult. It's marked for adults, this. Make your own decisions. Listen if you want. Don't listen if you want. It's up to you. I'm just talking. But that's my disclaimer. Please look after your own health and well-being. Make your own choices. If you want to listen to me, great. Yes, let's get on. I think there's been... So for me, I have had to overcome mental health challenges for quite a few years in different periods of my life that have presented themselves in different ways, and I found that there's a few key things that you can do to help you through a mental health crisis, I'm going to call it. I don't actually like referring to it as like a mental health problem, because I don't think like this is the first thing that it's like super clear. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. If you're going through a mental health disturbance, it's not because there's anything wrong with you. Like, I really believe that, like 100% in my own experience. Like, and the longer that I attached to that idea that there was obviously something wrong with me, the more mentally unstable or unwell I became. What was happening to me in my mind was I was struggling to process and understand trauma that had happened, that needed to be processed and understood in order for me to be able to function again, in the world. And that was maybe like the first thing that I just want to really clear up, that it was very harmful for me on my healing process to really consider what was going on in my mind as a problem, or so that there was something wrong with us. And for me, it was a massive part of my healing to let go of that what was happening was a very needed, natural part of the processing of traumatic events I'd lived through, continual traumas that I was exposing myself to that I was not dealing with, and that was causing distress in my mind that then caused different symptoms to play out. So things like, then that's where I suppose you get to this idea of diagnosis and stuff, but depression, anxiety, disorders, all of this stuff, it's a symptom of not being able to process the trauma that I had gone through. And so yeah, that's one of the first things that I wanted to kind of say. Another thing is that you can work through it, but it's not a quick fix. For a long time, I was really searching for and hoping to find a quick fix, and it was offered to us often, oh, just do this, just take this pill, or just try this exercise, or do this practice, whatever it was. Part of us was really hoping that it would just bang, some magic, you know, thing would happen and I would be fine, I would be well again. That's never how it's worked for me. There have been, I will talk about some of the ways that I did actually find healing. There are moments where you have big shifts in healing that, you know, will drag you out of a cycle of emotions, like such as a depressive episode or a high anxiety episode. But there's also, you know, you need to actually address the problem, which requires time, a commitment of time, making changes, potentially, not always, because I don't know obviously everyone's situation, how they've ended up with their mental health distress, but likelihood is you're going to have to make some changes in order to change or feel the benefit of a change. So yeah, just accepting that there is something wrong as well. Not wrong, I don't mean that. But accepting that there's a crisis, that something is not processed fully, is a big step. And asking for support you need. I'm not saying willy-nilly decide for yourself, obviously, who it's best to ask. But you can, sometimes as part of, you know, the distress, that you kind of think you can't trust anybody to help you. And it might be true. I'm not saying that that's not. I don't know, like I say, I don't know people's situations. It might be, you know, that you can't trust some of the people in your life, but you potentially might be able to trust some. Just because actually certain things that you need that I'll go into, or, you know, that you can't provide for yourself, still need to be provided. And then it's a bit of a vicious cycle that if you don't provide these things, then you can't actually provide a healing environment where you can deal with the distress, the mental distress, and help yourself get well. So I'll leave that there for a minute. For me, there was 3 main processes to healing and recovering from mental health distress. And I am also not sitting here claiming that I'm never going to have mental health distress again, or I never do have it. Obviously life happens, you know. I've just had a rough week because of something that's happened in my personal life, and I allowed that process to happen. But because of the skills and the experience I've had, it's a much shorter time frame, and it's not so distressing. I know how to go through it. And one of the reasons why I was just so moved to do this video is with the current situation going on. It's something I've said ever since, you know, from day one, that yes, okay, physical health is important, but without our mental health, we can't, it affects everything. It affects our physical health. It affects how we are in the world, and we can't make, you know, good decisions for ourselves. And mental health is just as important as physical health, and they talk about it a lot, but the pandemic situation is amplifying this, you know, issue. It's a global traumatic event. It's going to cause mental distress, and then if all the resources are going into physical health and mental health distress is being ignored, there's just this feeling in us that so many people are like struggling at the minute. And if you've never had mental health distress before, and now suddenly you have, and you're locked, you're stuck in your house with, you know, without other people to confirm that this is a stressful, traumatic experience, you know, that, yeah, it just really, it pains us. Like, I'm an empathic person, and I feel this collective energy going on. And then for other people who have, you know, a bit like myself, that have overcome mental health or have been managing their own mental health distress, and then this traumatic episode has happened, and all the previous strategies and structures, support systems you had in place have just been wiped away. I just think it can be a very distressing time. And you can't always rely on the services that are claiming to be supporting people, and they're not going to help you get through the actual distress. And it's a very, very complex issue, obviously, for everybody, and that's why I think there's potentially a lot of opinions about it, and why there's anxiety. It's a little bit of anxiety in me to talk about it, because it's like, well, I don't know people's personal situations, and don't want to give anyone advice that might harm them. But at the same time, if there's not a balanced information out there about how you can manage mental health distress, then how are we going to get through it? And that does concern me. So that's why I've been moved to do this video, because I think with the years and years of experience I've had dealing with this now, I can deal with it better myself. And if I can share that and it does resonate with some people and they can help themselves through their own mental health distress, then that's got to be better for everyone, right? That's my hope. So for me, there's kind of 3 main things that help me through mental health distress. Is experiments, practices and rituals, and they go hand in hand, side by side, especially if you're trying to go through this situation alone, and you haven't got much support. First of all, I've mentioned in one of my videos, creating a healing environment is vital, and that's like a physical environment for yourself and within your own body, and a safe environment around you, which is where you are, your home or wherever you're staying, and the people around you. That is vital. And in order to do that, so you can give yourself the space that you need to actually deal with the cause of the distress, whilst managing the symptoms of the distress, is really, really important. So experimenting, the first phase is experiment to find what makes your environment better, safer, feel more whole, feel more healthy. And it could, I can't give you the answers, I can't give anyone the answers. I can give some suggestions that ended up helping me, but they're experiments. It's like what works for you. And if you know how you're feeling in yourself in a baseline, and you want to get better, paying attention to that feeling is kind of a vital first point. Anyway, I've gone into giving advice. That's why Betty's turned up. Yeah, so just being able to recognise your feeling, and experiments are noticing how you feel, not forcing anything, because actually the reason you're having mental health distress is because something, like a traumatic event has happened. Sometimes just going with the process, giving in, don't fight the depression. Like if you're feeling depressed or if you're feeling anxious, notice it, name it, allow it. And sometimes just going through that process, just giving in to the depression or giving in to the anxiety and then letting it actually emote through you as it wants to, helps the process. And that's one of the experiments that you kind of need to learn, or I had to learn for myself, is when am I holding on to the depression, or when am I fighting the depression, and when is that beneficial, and when should I just give in to it and just be like, look, actually I need to spend some time just feeling this level of crap, and not being afraid of the feelings. It's something that I've said in another video, to not be afraid of them feelings and acknowledge they're there. But when you're in a place where you are inspired or motivated to try something, or it can come in lots of different ways, but you think, maybe I'll just do this, or maybe I'll do that, then act. And do experiments. If you don't know already, you'll have to do experiments. So for me, that was stuff around all sorts, mind, body and spirit. So food, different exercise, just all sorts of different, I'm trying to think off the top of my head for some of my notes. Anything that I would come across that would spark me interest at the time, I would think, I'll just try it, and then I would just notice how I felt before and how I felt after. And that's all you're doing. Did this action help you feel a bit better than before? Yes. How much? Was it this much better or this much better? And then you use that information, you're just gathering information with your experiments to then think, well, was it worth the effort or the money or the time, whatever it is you've invested, to have feel this much better? Maybe. If it was this much better, you might think, yes, it might be worth it. I'm going to do that again. And that's the next phase for me, which is practice. Practices. And again, some days you maybe not going to be able to practice. And I'm not saying that you push yourself to practice. But it's like, if you've found something that helps you feel better, do it again when you can. When you feel that urge that you would like to feel better, or you think it's good for you to do take an action, and you're not inspired to try a new experiment, redo one of the other experiments that you know helped before and turn it into a practice. Yeah, and the practice can be something that you might turn into doing every day, or every couple of days, or when you need it, once a week, whatever it is. But you're taking away, when you call it a practice as well, you're taking away any attachment to the result. You're just practicing this skill, and hopefully it might help you feel that bit better again. So yeah, experiments when you're inspired. Don't force anything, but when you're inspired, experiments. And then when any experiments that work to help you make it feel a little bit better, practice them. Because obviously the more you practice these skills that you're learning with your experiments, the better you get at it. And hopefully then the more it's going to help you. So I'm going from, this, I'm doing this is bad feeling, good feeling. Does it help you make you feel better? I don't know why I'm doing that, but then the last part is ritual. There have been periods, so sometimes when you're just trying to find a baseline, if you've been really depressed and you just want to get back to some sort of level of normality, to get yourself out of that hole, then the practices help. I think the experiments and the practices, they give you that lift. And they might, and the practices, if you get really good at them, they might give you some longevity in that lift. But the next phase is, if you're to try and avoid getting sucked back down again, is to let go, like really exploring and finding the cause and then turning them into rituals. That might sound a bit confusing, but everything I did in my journey was a mind, body, spirit. When I look at it in the end, all the experiments, all the practices were based around, my physical body, my thought processes, my emotions, my relationships. And then that's also like on a level in myself, with other people, with the wider world. And I did lots of different experiments and therefore incorporated quite a few different practices into my life over a period of time. So I'm saying there's no quick fixes. It changed my lifestyle. I had to make a lifestyle change that helped me feel better. But part of that, in amongst the practices, is really exploring yourself. So the depression, the anxiety, these feelings that you're having, that are the mental health distress, have been caused by something. And to find the cause is to find the cause and to actually take action to solve the cause in your life, if you can, or process that cause back into your life, is where the true healing comes from. I'm really, really concerned here about contradicting medical knowledge. As far as I'm aware, yes, there might be a chemical imbalance that is linked to mental health distress, but that's not the cause. Like, okay, again, if you want to follow medical advice, do it. But I'm just saying, in my experience, that was not the cause of my depression. It was, a symptom of, yes, once I had let go of all these self-care and all these different things that would help you be well, my brain wasn't functioning properly because the distress is causing, so much to go on. It wasn't functioning properly, which was, a chemical imbalance. Once you do the practices, once you do your experiments and practices that help you feel better, and you get back on this baseline and you found your chemical balance again, you then need to address the cause. And that's, for me, where the ritual comes in. So journaling, for example, asking myself questions. Why do I feel this way? What caused that? Some people, again, say you don't have to delve into that, but I did. Like, for me, I definitely did. Because there was so many contributing factors that I had, just for years and years and years, I just didn't have to, I didn't want to consider. It might just be that there's one single event, for you that's happening. We're going through this global pandemic and I can't see my friends and family and I can't work as I would like to, and okay, that's a pretty big deal. And you might be aware of it, but the ritual is like the next level that helps you release that trauma or integrate it into your life. So the rituals it can be anything, again, that you might need to experiment with your rituals and practice with your rituals. But it's significant action that you take to release or integrate that knowledge into your life for healing. So obviously, not obviously, in my case, I enjoy doing things on a spiritual level with, it has meaning for me, and I use all sorts of different tools for that, and that's helped me. That's like some rituals that I do. If I've discovered something big, I might try and visualize it and release it and integrate it that way. But yeah, there's other rituals that I've done, like physical body rituals, like going to a place and doing something. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Once I went, I walked to a waterfall and I screamed into the waterfall this, cause of one of my mental health distresses that I'd found in great detail, really screamed at this waterfall, and it was gone. Took it with us. You know what I mean? Because I had held it in for so long, trying to hide it, and I didn't feel like I could express it to another person. So I just took it somewhere where no one could overhear. Obviously, the sound of the water was really, really loud, so I could say it as loud as I wanted, and no one would hear. And then it just went away, and then that issue wasn't there anymore. So yeah, the ritual, which again is something you can experiment with, but it's important to do that. I think once you notice something, once you've found a contributing factor to the cause of the mental distress, do a ritual to get rid of it. Well, I want to be really careful about saying that, because it's not always to get rid of it. Sometimes part of the ritual is to, I think of like a crying baby, right, who's in distress. You wouldn't just chuck the baby away. Sometimes you've got to care for the baby and love the baby and accept that the baby, if it's your baby, is going to be part of you, and you just have to learn how to soothe the baby. And again, this is something that I had to learn, whether is this something that I need, that's part of my experience now, that I can't just let go of, to try and ignore. Again, yeah, we're getting into semantics now. It's experimenting with, is this something that I can actually incorporate into my life, because there's a potential that it's going to have value again in the future for me to learn and experience, or is it something that just kind of I've created that's not really based on a realistic version of truth that I can then let go of because it's not serving us. Yes, there is potentially a lot more information there that I don't know if it's helpful or not, of practices that help me, different experiments that I did. But again, it's also personal. I really don't feel like I want to share those details, because for me it was, taking them chances, doing the experiments myself, following my own intuition, releasing things in the way that felt right for me, incorporating things into my life in the way that felt right for me is all part of the journey. And people telling you what to do all the time, for me, it didn't really help. Following advice, and this was one, a lot of people try to give you advice when you have mental health distress, and frankly, some of them, it's like, I'm blocking my words here because I want to say, don't take advice from someone who's never ever had mental health distress, or who's like, 10 years ago, for a month I felt really bad because I went through a breakup. It's like, well, no, that's different, right? Or follow their advice if you want. I don't want to tell people what to do, but I'm just saying, there are lots of things that help, and all you're trying to do is find some sort of baseline where you can feel a bit better, so you can then deal with the cause of your depression. And once you can, or anxiety, or whatever the distress is, and once you can find the cause, then you can do something to change it. And that might be, so the ritual might be, learning a new skill. I had to learn lots of new skills in communication, for example. I had to learn a lot about relationship dynamics, and I did that in a practice form and then also in a ritual way. I feel like I'm talking a bit too much now. So yeah, I hope this video is a little bit helpful. There are others. There is one other thing that I did want to say. I've brought them here, and then there are alternatives to drug therapies that can help with the physical response. When there's a chemical imbalance or something like that, that's the justification for taking drug therapies. But what I found is when I took the drug therapies, I had side effects to then deal with, which caused more distress. So I did then, for me, I did quite a bit of research and found alternatives, natural alternatives, and some of them are really simple. Do your own research, but yeah, in fact, I'm not gonna show them on camera. I did some research and found that there are herbs and extractions from herbs that really helped, that didn't have any side effects to take. So they were technically doing the same thing as the drug therapy, but they didn't have the side effects. And some simple things that I did just to help with detoxification as well. Like having salt baths and just different things like that, like really simple things at first that helped us feel a bit better, but when you practice them, have a cumulative effect. And there are alternatives that can have less side effects that we have to deal with in our lives. And if I would encourage, if it's something that does, you're inspired for an experiment, just do some research. Like, there's so much information available online now. You might find a path that feels better for you. And I was able to do research on, nutrition and things like that to help. There were some really, really simple solutions that helped in the beginning. Like, my diet was atrocious, like really bad most of the time. It links for me. I had gotten into really bad habits and I wasn't getting the nutrition I needed for my brain to function properly and then be able to rebalance the chemicals, right? So simple things, like getting all your vitamins and minerals, they're important to go together. The vitamins and minerals are discovered. So if I do have a slump, the first thing I do is make sure I've got vitamin D, magnesium and cod liver oil. They're just my 3 go-tos that seem to help with, stress, the way I hold stress in my body, and gets rid of the body aches and things, and just gives me more energy to be able to get out and do some of the other practices. Again, I'm not trying to give advice, but I'm just saying they're like an example of a really small little thing that I learned from doing experiments, researching, doing experiments that worked for me, that I turned into practices that I can now use if I feel like if I'm slipping into that, if I start feeling emotions of depression and I'm concerned that it's lasted a bit longer than would be normal for whatever the experiences I'm dealing with, that I turn to them. Like I say, and for me, they're really simple practices, which is making sure I'm getting all my vitamins and minerals, walking outside in nature, doing a bit of writing and journaling, and they might help me to lift out fairly quickly, turning a depression episode or an anxiety, really strong feelings of anxiety, something going that I've suffered from in the past for months and years, to hours or days. Like I say, I think we're emotional beings, and it's very normal to have these emotional ups and downs. But what's not normal is ignoring it and not actually dealing with the cause of them. And that's what I feel is really vital to acknowledge. And at the minute, with what we're going on as a population, it's normal. It will be normal to have mental distress, and don't always fight it. Accept the fact that we're going through a really, really difficult time collectively, and it's going to bring up emotions that are difficult, and there's nothing wrong with you for having them. And there is things that you can do that's going to help to ease those feelings while we're trying to deal with the cause. I'm going to end that there. Thank you very much for watching the video. If you like it, please like the video, and subscribe to my channel if you want to, and share it amongst your friends if you think it's going to be helpful for them. And take care of yourself. Yes, please take care.